everybody. Get your engines fired up. It's time for Lights Out, Let's Chat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Lights Out, Let's Chat. Preseason testing for the 2026 Formula One World Championship is officially in the books, and we have a lot to talk about. But before we jump into the highlights, let's quickly touch on the new rules. Don't worry, we're doing a full deep dive on the 2026 regulations in a separate episode with our favorite special guest, Mr. F1. Today is just the overview, because this season isn't just a new season, it's a new era. The 2026 regulations brought smaller and lighter cars, a 50-50 split between combustion engine and electric power, no more traditional DRS, new energy development strategies, fully sustainable fuel, updated safety structures. Testing gave us our first real look at all of that in action. You could already see drivers managing battery development differently. The cars looked more agile, maybe even a little nervous in high-speed sections. And without traditional DRS, overtaking is going to rely far more on timing and energy management. Basically, brains are about to matter just as much as bravery. And one thing testing showed very clearly, some of the teams are adapting faster than others. And that's going to matter when we get to race 1. Now remember, testing isn't about the trophies, it's about the clues. And boy, oh boy, we got some good ones. So, let's break it down. As always, teams gather at the Bahrain International Circuit, the perfect mix of heavy braking zones, long straights, technical corners, and tire degrading conditions. If your car works in Bahrain, it usually works anywhere. If it doesn't, well, you have a long 2 weeks ahead of you in a very, very awkward factory meeting. So, with the new 2026 power units featuring that 50-50 combustion and electric split, reliability was the biggest question mark heading into testing. And here's what stood out. A real early red flag with battery cooling issues. Some teams adjusting energy deployment mapping. You know, the strategic software controlled planning of how the electric energy recovery system, aka ERS, boosts the car's speed around a specific circuit. But honestly, overall, surprisingly strong reliability across the grid. That's a huge win in F1, because new era plus new engines usually equals chaos. Instead, most teams completed full race simulations, which is exactly what you want to see before round 1. No one wants to start their season with a DNS. Did not start. And a very awkward team meeting. So unfortunately we said goodbye to the old school DRS. Now drivers are working with boost buttons, recharge strategies, new overtake modes. And during testing, you could see just how much more involved drivers are in managing their energy. Engineers were coaching constantly. Drivers were experimenting with development points. It's no longer just open flap, flyby. It's more like, okay, so do I defend now, attack later, save battery, or should we just full send it? We love strategic chaos. So, the shorter, lighter cars were noticeable immediately. Onboard show quicker direction changes, more rotation mid-corner, drivers attacking curbs more aggressively. That 30 kilogram weight reduction, you can see it. But they also looked a little less planted in high-speed corners, which means drivers are working harder. And honestly, that's great news, because when drivers have to fight the car a little, well, that's when the magic happens. Without naming any names, one top team looked extremely comfortable right away. They had smooth long runs, basically means driver doing constant clean laps over an extended number of laps. They had constant lap times, not many correction, and very strong tire management. Meaning, a driver is really good at keeping their tires in good condition for as long as physically possible, without losing too much speed. You know that vibe when a driver looks like they're barely trying, but they're fast? Yeah, that. Now are they sandbagging, meaning a team or driver is intentionally not showing their true pace, usually during testing or practicing? Are they hiding pace? Basically, another way of saying a team isn't showing how fast they truly are. Are they already miles ahead? Testing never tells the full story, but confidence is definitely hard to fake. Testing also hinted that the midfield might be tighter than ever. We saw a traditionally midfield team popping into the top 3, strong long run consistency, competitive sector times in technical areas. Now, yes, fuel loads are top secret. Engine modes, definitely top secret. Everyone claims they're just doing aero runs. Sure. Of course you are. But repeated pace across multiple sessions? Very interesting. We might have a sleeper team heading into a race, and we obviously love a surprise podium storyline. Obviously, testing is definitely brutal for the rookies. New system, complex energy management, new car balance, massive pressure. But a few new faces looked very calm. They had clean laps, not that many mistakes, smart long runs, and clear communication with the team. That early confidence can snowball fast once the season starts. And that's how breakout year begins. Alright, FlowViz. Also known as flow visualization, it is a fluorescent paint-like mixture, often mixed with paraffin, applied to the F1 car bodywork during testing to visualize aerodynamic flow. And we saw a lot of that during testing. Teams were definitely testing floor edges, adjusting diffuser setups, swapping rear wings, trying different configurations constantly. The new aero philosophy clearly allows for different interruptions, which means development battles are going to be fascinating this season. And we all know the upgrade war is undefeated. Probably wondering, Michaela, who's actually winning testing? Well, no one, but also everyone. The real winners have clear reliability, strong, long run pace, and drivers who look confident. Now the real losers? Major mechanical gremlins, teams still chasing balance on the final day. And if your engineers were still staring at laptops looking stressed on day 3, that's not good. It just means they are having data issues or car issues. And hopefully they can figure those out. Okay, let's hear from the people who've been in the cockpit testing these brand new cars in Bahrain. You know, the ones who have to deal with the changes firsthand. One of the biggest headlines from testing came from Red Bull's Max Verstappen, and he didn't hold back. He said the new cars were not a lot of fun. It feels a bit more like Formula E on steroids, and added that the increased focus on energy management means it's not very Formula One-like. That's one of the clearest and most colorful driver thoughts we've heard so far, and it immediately sparked reactions across the grid. McLaren's Lando Norris had a different vibe. After hearing about Verstappen's comments, he said he was amused by everyone's reactions, and that while the cars are very different and not as enjoyable in the same way, he still finds them fun to drive. He pointed out that he didn't want to be the one to just complain on the first day back, and that seeing everyone's reactions has been pretty funny. Now, Ferrari's Charles Leclerc gave a really grounded answer. He said, "We've completed many laps. It's always nice to look at the lap times, but in testing, they don't really mean much. The focus has to stay on ourselves and work." That's classic Leclerc. Keep calm, trust the process, and don't overreact. Now, Audi driver Gabriel Bortoleto offered one of the most interesting takes on how the 2026 cars feel in practice, and noted that even if the cars are slower, that doesn't necessarily make them less fun. This is a very genuine insight, acknowledging change without hate. Now, listening to some of the drivers' comments, some drivers are frankly critical. Some are lighthearted and positive, others are focused on work, not the headlines. And that spectrum of reactions is exactly what testing is about. It's not just about who's fast, it's about how many people are adapting to change and how they feel heading into an era that looks very different from any we've known before. Okay, we've heard some strong reactions already, but the feedback across the grid has been layered, thoughtful, and in some cases, curiously diplomatic. Let's add a few more voices to the mix. The headline quote everyone latched onto came from Max Verstappen, who described the new cars as not a lot of fun, a bit more Formula E on steroids. His biggest concern? The heavy emphasis on energy management and lift and coast driving. That tells us something important. The 50-50 combustion electric split is very noticeable from the cockpit. Drivers can feel when they're harvesting, they can feel when they're deploying, and that changes the rhythm. Now, Lando took a more measured approach. He acknowledged the cars feel different, especially with the reduced downforce and the new development systems, but also said it's too early to judge. He made the point that every regulation change feels strange at first, and that's fair. Drivers adapt faster than everyone. Lewis has spoken about how different the balance feels under braking and mid-corner with the new power delivery. He emphasized that it's still early in the development, but noted the cars required more finesse, particularly when switching between harvesting and deployment modes. That aligns with what we saw on the track. More steering corrections, more thought. Charles kept it grounded, saying lap times and testing don't tell the full story, and that the team's focus is understanding the car's behavior, especially tire performance and energy uses over long runs. That's the key. The drivers aren't chasing headlines, they're chasing the data. George Russell has mentioned that the new cars feel lighter and more reactive, but also less forgiving when you overstep the limit. That's interesting because it supports what we saw visually. More rotation mid-corner, a little more instability in high-speed sections. These cars might reward precision more than aggression. Of course, we do have some rookies on the grid. A few of the newer drivers have commented on how mentally draining the new systems are. More switches, more development maps, more discussions per lap. It's not just about driving, it's about managing systems in real time. When you line up all this feedback, a pattern emerges. The cars are lighter and more agile. Energy management is central. Driving rhythm has changed. Precisions matter more than ever. Some drivers love the technical challenge. Some miss the raw, flat-out feel. And honestly, the tension is fascinating. Because when drivers have to adapt, that's when we see who really elevates.
From Lights Out to the Checkered Flag, this has been Lights Out, Let's Chat podcast. We'll see you next time.